Welcome, everyone. My name is Mel. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm with the Franklin County Natural Resources Conservation District. We are very excited to kick off our Maple Producer Workshop series with this webinar on funding opportunities that are available for maple operations. So I'm just going to share my screen to give a brief rundown of a couple of things before we get started. And then we'll hear from a couple of special guests. All right. Can everyone see the slideshow? Oh, sorry, it's hard to see everybody. Was that a yes? Great, thank you. Okay, so like I said, I'm with the Franklin County NRCD. This is our Maple Workshop series, which was kindly made possible with funding from the Lake Champlain Basin Program. And today we're going to be discussing funding opportunities specifically for maple operations. And this webinar will feature Jennifer Porter from the Agency of Agriculture and Dany Boyle from Efficiency Vermont. And I just wanted to mention that we do have 3 other workshops upcoming. We have one in 2 weeks that is about forest management specifically for maple producers. And that's going to be with the new Franklin County Forester, Charlie Hancock. And everyone is welcome to come. We're going to be discussing forest management, and we're encouraging folks to bring their forest management plans so they can ask questions about interpreting those. So that's going to be a great event, and it's going to be very kindly hosted by Jason Gagne of Gagne Maple. So that's going to be great. We're actually going to try and go out in the sugar bush. And then we have 2 more events: organic certification, which will be another webinar, and then water quality, which will be another in-person event. And you can RSVP at this link, which I will also share in the chat later. And another thing we're doing as a part of this project is we are conducting site visits with maple producers who want to talk about acceptable management practices, or AMPs, on their properties. So if you want to talk about water quality, forest roads, stream crossings, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to come and walk your property with you and talk about this. And I will also be sharing these links later as well. Lastly, we do have a portable skidder bridge rental program in Franklin County and Grand Isle County. We have 2 portable skidder bridges still available for rent, and they're only $100 a month. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to reach out to us. And then I will be asking folks to fill out a survey at the end. Okay, thanks everyone. Jennifer, would you want to go first? It looks like you're muted.
Let's start there. I'll share my screen, but I won't be able to see the chat. So can you monitor the chat for me, Mel? Okay. Let me get to sharing here.
Oh, sorry. And I did forget to say that we will have a Q&A session after these presentations for folks.
Yeah. Okay.
With some curious questions.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Okay. So hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Porter. I work for the Vermont Agency of Agriculture. And part of my job is to help ag producers find resources they need for their businesses to thrive. And today I'm going to talk about a few different grants that we offer at the Agency of Ag that would be applicable for maple producers, and then one federal grant that I'm just trying to promote to folks. So wanted to make sure you knew about it. And I'll stop periodically to ask if there's like questions specific to something I'm saying, but like Mel said, we'll also have time at the end for questions. Okay, so just a little bit overview information about grants that we administer at the Agency of Ag. So our programs change a little bit year to year based on what the state budget is passed in May. So for example, you know, our allocation for a grant program might be more or less than in years past based on the state budget. So a good example of this is last year we had a lot of funds in our Working Lands grant program, And this year we have a lot fewer, so the grant will be more competitive because there's fewer funds to distribute. So that's just something to keep in mind. Most of our grant applications are going to be open for about 6 to 8 weeks, which might sound like a long time, but I really encourage people to start the process of applying as early as possible because it can take longer than you think. You might run into questions or issues. So I think it's always best to start early because 6 to 8 weeks can fly by, especially if you're in a production season. Most of our grants are going to be reimbursed based, so you'll need to have come up with some or all of the cost of the project up front and then be reimbursed for it. Usually the reimbursements will come in chunks, so at the beginning you'll get a part of the grant award. After you submit a halfway report, you'll get another part, and then at the end, usually a small percentage, like 10 or 20% is reserved for when you submit your final report. So that's just, it's not all an upfront payment to do the project, and that's just something you need to know going in. And for most of our grants, you need, if you're not a sole proprietor, you need to be registered with the Secretary of State's office. So that's just something you can get out of the way before you even apply for a specific grant, if you think you will be. And then just like some general thoughts on how to apply for grants from the Agency of Agriculture. So all of our grants will have a request for applications document, which is often referred to as the RFA. And that is going to have all of the details you need about a grant, from eligibility to background information to the specific application questions, the scoring rubric. Everything you need will be in that document. That's your guiding document. So I say read that front to back first to get all the information. There will often be a frequently asked questions doc that you can also read. I suggest doing that. And then often there will be a informational webinar where you can ask questions you might have or hear the grant manager talk and go through the details of the grant. So that's great to attend or watch the recording. And then if you haven't applied to a grant from us before, I would suggest registering in our grant software system, which is called Web Grants. It takes 1 to 2 days to get approved in that system. So we're just saying do that in the beginning so it's ready to go when you're ready to submit your application. And then I like to recommend that people write their application responses in like a Word document. So you can edit it there and then you can copy and paste it into the Web Grants portal when you're ready to submit. It's also a good practice to have your responses in a Word doc so that, should there be any technological glitch with our system, you'll have your responses saved. It's also helpful if the grant's not awarded and you try to apply for a different grant that you might be able to repurpose some of your answers so you can save yourself some of the typing. Okay, so now the first grant I want to talk about is our Working Lands Business Enhancement Grant. So this is one of our flagship grant programs, the Working Lands program. We have it every year. It's a state allocated grant program. And it's offered annually in the fall. This year it will be, for sure, it'll be October 18th that it will open. Sorry, my little face boxes are covering some of my text. This grant is for project awards of $10,000 to $50,000. And new this year, there's no matching funds required, which is really exciting. It really eases the burden on producers, but you do have to be able to demonstrate that should your project end up costing more than you anticipate, you can cover those additional costs. The types of projects this grant will cover are market development, research and development, infrastructure development, and workforce training and development. So much development. It cannot cover the purchase of land or farm worker housing. Those are 2 ineligible categories. To be eligible, you just have to be a land-based farm or forest operation in the state of Vermont. And if you have previously received a Working Lands grant, any of the ones listed here in the last 3 years, you just have to wait. You have to wait 3 years from your previous award to reapply. Actually, I'll pause there. Are there any questions about the Working Lands grant? I would say this, the Working Lands grant is a really versatile grant in that a lot of different projects qualify for it. So it covers a lot of bases. So that. Okay, the next grant I want to talk about is our specialty crop block grant, which is a mouthful to say. So this is actually a USDA program that the state administers. And this grant is designed to enhance the competitiveness of specialty crops. And specialty crops covers a whole bunch of different kinds of crops, including maple syrup. And the grants don't have like a specific min or max award, but historically we've gone anywhere between $4,000 and $58,000. And this grant does have a match requirement, which means if you applied for a grant for $50,000, you would have to show matching funds of $25,000. So that could be cash, it could be in kind, so like it could be your labor that you're using for that project. And this grant also opens late in the fall. This year it will open November 18th. And the unique thing about this grant is that every project that is awarded has to benefit more than one specialty crop business or organization. And so we don't get a ton of application from individual producers for this grant. Often we're seeing applications from like producer associations or research institutions who are doing work on behalf of many producers, but we do sometimes award projects to individual producers. And so I think it's one that people don't often think about as a producer. The types of projects it covers, so like these are the project categories that you'd have to like pick which one yours falls into. So increasing consumption and consumer purchasing of maple syrup, increasing access to maple syrup and expanding production and distribution, increasing food safety, knowledge and processes, pest disease and control, new seed varieties. That doesn't really apply right now to maple, expanding research and development and improving sustainability. So, an example of like what an individual producer might do that would be eligible for this grant would be say you wanted to do kind of like a research trial on tapping earlier in the season or tapping twice in a year, and you got funds to implement that project, and then you collected data as part of it, and then you shared that data out with other maple producers so that it could benefit their operations as well. That would qualify. Or say you develop some sort of like engineering or technological solution to a problem that you and other producers have. And then you share that technology information or how to create that solution with others, that would count too. So it's really, promoting innovative practices and pushing the boundaries of the industry that's going to benefit everybody and not just your business. So these projects are going to look really different than the working lands projects, which are really designed just to enhance your business. Are there any questions about the specialty crop block grant? I know it's a little bit of a confusing grant. Okay. The next one we have available to maple producers is the Trade Show Assistance Grant. So this is designed to help ag businesses exhibit and sell their products at trade shows that target out-of-state wholesale buyers. And so it can reimburse up to 50% of costs associated with attending trade shows, and the awards are between $2,000 and $5,000. So this is a much smaller grant, and it opens in early December. So the trade shows that we're trying to support people in attending are really targeting out-of-state buyers and targeting those wholesale customers. So it's not really like a direct-to-consumer trade show, and you already have to have some wholesale accounts, 3 or more, to demonstrate that that's a part of your business. And the product that you're promoting must meet the Vermont local definition, which any syrup produced here would, or other maple products. And you can't have attended the trade show more than 5 times already. So it's it's trying to promote the new attendance of trade shows. And your business must be located or headquartered in Vermont. Some eligible expenses that it can help reimburse are travel and accommodation, marketing and booth design, registration fees, booth fees, and freight of product, and then other marketing costs that you might incur. Are there any questions about the trade show grant? Okay. Okay, the last grant I wanted to talk about is not a state grant. So it's not one that we administer at the Agency of Agriculture. It's a USDA Rural Development Grant. I just am trying to spread the word about it to maple producers and other producers. So this program offers guaranteed loan financing and grant funding for renewable energy systems or to make energy efficiency improvements to your operation. So the grants can cover up to 50% of the cost of the project. I put a little asterisk here because I have heard through the grapevine that in the future, maybe next year, at some point, they might reduce that to 25% of the cost. So it's 50% now. I don't know when they'll be changing it, but I think at some point they will be reducing that. So if you're thinking about applying, that would be a great time to apply. And then for the loans, that can cover up to 75% of the cost. And then the maximum award amount is $500,000 for the grants and $1 million for the loans. And this application actually runs on a quarterly basis right now. The next one is due December 30th. I have heard that they might reduce that down to twice a year, but I haven't seen anything official of that yet. So changes maybe in the future. So this, to be eligible for this, you either need to be an agricultural producer, which means greater than 50% of your income is coming from agriculture, or to be a small business in a rural area, which they define as a town of less than 50,000 people. So most of Vermont qualifies, if not all of Vermont. And for energy efficiency projects, you do need an energy audit in order to apply. If you're applying for a renewable energy system, like for example, you want to install solar for your business, that does not need an energy audit. And the energy audits do cost money. It depends on the size and scope of the project. I would say like anywhere from between $1,000 and $5,000. So that is quite a barrier to application for some folks, and especially if you're not applying for like a really large grant. But I do have some resources for supporting that. That I'll talk about in a little bit. And then as part of the application, you need to submit utility bills and tax returns. So it's a big federal grant, and it's quite a cumbersome application process. I will say that more intense than some state grants, which I know aren't the most simple to begin with. So examples of the renewable energy projects that this could fund are biomass, geothermal, hydropower, hydrogen, wind, solar. The one thing about these projects that I know a lot of ag businesses, their home is next to their business. And so if you were going to install, say, solar, it could both benefit your home and business. This grant can only cover costs associated with the business. So for example, if you were going to install solar, the solar company would come out and they would determine what proportion of the power would be for your home and what proportion of the power would be for the business. And you could only apply for a grant award that would cover a proportion of the business. So that's just like a little nitty-gritty detail there. And then some examples of energy efficiency improvements or projects that they list. Not all of them may be relevant, but reverse osmosis machines do qualify as an energy efficiency improvement because, they make the process a lot more efficient, as you all know. And so it could be buying, your first RO machine. It could also mean buying a more efficient one if that were the case. So, but it can cover things like insulation, lighting, cooling, doors and windows, anything that's going to make your operation more energy efficient. So like I said, this grant is really cumbersome to apply to. And there is a program through Farm Credit East that offers free grant writing for Vermont agricultural producers. That Farm Credit East actually has received a grant to provide this service for free to Vermont farmers. And so they're actually looking for more Vermont farmers to apply. And so they'll do like 90% of the work, they say. You know, you have to participate in the process and provide them with documents like tax returns and stuff like that. But they'll kind of like shepherd you through the process. They ask for 60 days ahead of the deadline so that they have plenty of time to help you. So for example, if you wanted to apply by December 30th, you would need to contact them sometime next week just to say, like, I'm interested, how do we get this process started? The contact there is Heather LaPierre. Her email and phone are on the slide. She's really helpful, really responsive. She's really great. And then there's a program that may be able to help with some of the cost of the energy audit that you would need if you're applying for an energy efficiency project. There's the READY program based out of the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. READY stands for Rural Economic Development Initiative. And so if your business is located in a town of less than 5,000 people, they can help defer the costs of that energy audit, depending on how much your audit is going to cost. It may be able to cover all of it or some of it. So, you know, it's not available to everybody, I realize, but it is an option for folks in small rural areas. And just to reiterate, if you're applying for renewable energy systems, you don't need that energy audit. So there's no cost to applying. Okay. And then I wanted to let you all know about our Vermont Ag Bulletin, which is our weekly email newsletter that we send out on Sunday evenings. I'm actually the one who curates and sends it out. And this is where we're going to list all of our grant announcements, all of our deadlines, relevant events like this one, and news, webinars, things that are of interest to the ag community and business development for ag businesses. So I recommend everybody who's, you know, even remotely interested in grants from the Agency of Ag or elsewhere to subscribe, so that, you know, you don't have to remember to go check the calendar of when something's going to be open or be due. You'll just get a weekly reminder of this one's coming up or this one's due in a week. So highly recommend that. And I realize that you can't click on this link, but you can also just go to the Vermont Agency of Agriculture website to subscribe to the Ag Bulletin. And I'll open it up for questions. I'm curious what questions you folks might have, and my contact info is here on that slide. You know, if you have any questions about the grants I talked about or other grants you might have heard about, or just want to know if grants are right for you, feel free to give me a call or an email. I'm happy to talk through your specific business and project ideas with you. Okay, do we have questions?
If folks aren't comfortable unmuting, you can also just throw questions in the chat and I can read them out loud for folks.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Hey, you can hear me. As far as grant writing, I see there's a 60-day window, and I have been denied so many times I stopped applying because it takes a lot of time. I am a one-man operation with 4,000 taps, produce about 1,200 gallons of syrup a year, but I don't have QuickBooks and all this stuff that the web grant people are looking for. I just do I file my taxes annually. They want to see your monthly, your quarterlies. I don't have that, so I apply again and again, and I always get denied for that reason. Well, this is what I've got, my annual tax returns, and that's the best I can produce because I have no employees. I don't need all this software. So that's one problem. And then the other is I I was in the Merchant Marine for 25 years, stationed in the Northwest. My market is out there. I do holiday and trade shows out there every year. And I always apply for that grant for trade shows. And they said, no, I get denied for that every year. So I stopped applying as well, because that's where I meet all my contacts for wholesaling. And it seemed like I was a perfect match, but they say, no, I'm not a run amok or somebody that's going to go to trade shows in Las Vegas and have Oprah Winfrey sponsoring me or something. I'm not just a one-man band. And I thought that's what these grants were designed to help smaller farmers, not the big producers who can go to these major trade shows in DC, Las Vegas. I go to them in the Northwest and I make lots of contacts, but I've never got any help. I've been denied every year. I just stopped applying last year because I just said the heck with it, because I always get denied for the same reasons. Well, we don't really look at those as trade shows. They're like holiday shows where you meet contacts and people want to buy your product. But I don't know. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your thoughts. It's for sure frustrating when you keep applying and keep not receiving grants.
Yeah, so I stopped after three. I gave it the 3-strike rule, denied 3 years in a row. I'm heading out in 2 weeks to do my trade shows again, but it's all all on me, and always has been.
Yeah, I will say, like, the one thing about all of the grants that we administer, because we're state government, all of our programs are very heavily regulated and mandated by both the legislature or the federal government, depending on where the funding is coming from. And so a lot of these rules that may feel arbitrary to producers are often imposed upon us in how we administer the program. So for the example of the trade shows, while we may understand that a holiday fair will serve the same function for you as a different trade show, based on like the rules or the statute that have created this grant, like we have to stick to pretty strict rules. So because we don't get a ton of leeway in interpreting what things mean, because that opens up the possibility of
Just the entrance fee in a lot of these trade shows would greatly exceed your grant amount just to be a participant in a trade show, in the trade shows that they described, like in Washington, D.C. and in Las Vegas. You're talking $5,000 to $10,000 just to set up a booth there to introduce yourself. And so your grant wouldn't even cover the entry fee.
Yeah, it's not designed to cover all costs, just to help defray some of the costs. I mean, we would love to cover all the costs, but we have, pretty limited budgets that are often taxpayer funded. And so we're doing our best to spread the benefit around to as many people as we can while still being somewhat meaningful. So it's always a tricky balance, and I definitely hear your frustrations on that. Yeah, and we do, like, we try to make these grants applicable for small producers like yourself up to large producers and everywhere in between. So it's really, we're trying to strike an impossible balance with them.
Yeah. Do you see any benefit in reaching out to the grant writers, as someone as small as I am, to assist with to go forward again and try to write a grant after I pretty much and the problem I have too is I'm doing all these holiday shows usually when these grants come out, so I'm working many hours a week, and I don't really have time to dedicate to the grant writing. If I had some assistance or some advanced notice, it might facilitate writing a better proposal.
Yeah, it might be helpful, but if the feedback about why you're not being awarded a grant is because of an eligibility question, then I don't think a grant writer is going to improve your chances of receiving that grant, because they can't change the eligibility, obviously.
Yeah, so these grants really aren't geared to small producers like me, so I shouldn't really waste any more of my time applying, is what you're saying basically then, because I don't have the software for for QuickBooks and all that, because there is no payroll, because I'm a one-man operation, so I really shouldn't waste my time going forward, is basically what you're saying.
I'm not gonna tell you how to spend, what's a waste of your time or not. I don't know the exacts of your business, but yes, you do need financial documentation for the working lands grant. I think that's the one you're talking about.
Well, I have the financial backing. Yeah, I had a successful career in the merchant marine. I've been able to lose a fortune making maple syrup, but I also have done a lot of expansion and our new ROs and lots of new equipment that I thought, because others, my neighbors, the Sillaways, got some grant money for their new RO, and of course they're more savvy with the grants. So we all talk to each other here. But I've never been successful actually getting a grant, so I had kept trying, but without success.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, if you want to talk more about your specific situation, I'd be happy to talk offline. I do want to make sure we have time for Dany to present and for others.
Sure, and I'll stand down now. I understand I've been hogging the airwaves here, but appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Jennifer, we do have a few questions in the chat if you just want to answer those quickly before Janie goes.
Let me stop sharing so that I can see them.
Yes.
Okay, are there more of one of these that a solar install for sugaring would apply? The Working Lands Grant, Business Enhancement Grant, you could apply for solar. That would apply the not the specialty crop because that wouldn't benefit others. And then the REAP grant would also apply to solar. Would there be a grant to replace vacuum pumps with more energy efficient pumps? Is there a grant for new vacuum sensors in the woods? Yeah, I think for that, well, for new vacuum sensors. So the one thing I will say about the Working Lands Business Enhancement Grants is the board that oversees that grant, which is made up of external folks to the Agency of Ag. So we usually have like one industry expert for each sector. There is a maple expert on there. They don't like to fund the cost of doing business projects. So for example, if you just need a new pump because it's old and less efficient now, like that, they might consider that a cost of doing business, and that businesses should be planning to replace equipment every so often. Whereas versus a piece of equipment that would allow you to expand your production or operation, or that's not just like they do sometimes grant energy efficiency things, but a first question to ask yourself is like, is this just a cost of doing business? Like, is this something that everybody kind of needs to replace or plan to replace every once in a while? But if there is a little bit of a difference there, then it could be eligible. Yeah, for the new vacuum sensors, same question. Like, is it because they're just kind of old and need to be replaced, or like if you didn't have vacuum sensors and then you wanted to add them, then I think that would be eligible for the business enhancement grant because it's kind of improving your business. Are sap producers just selling sap eligible for Working Lands grants or help with setting up infrastructure? Yes, sap is eligible. Any agricultural product or business is eligible for that. So setting up infrastructure, that is eligible, yes. If you're a brand new business, like if you are just setting up for the first time, I will say that new and beginning like startup businesses are generally less competitive for the Working Lands Business Enhancement Grant. The board likes to, because these are taxpayer dollars that we're trying to grant out, they want to be sure that they're granting them to businesses that they know are capable of using them wisely and not maybe going out of business the next year. And so it can be tricky for new businesses who desperately need funding to get going, but also if they don't have a track record to demonstrate that they'll likely be successful with their project, it's a little bit of a risky investment for the board. So that's not, we do sometimes grant to new producers, but I'll just say they're a little bit less competitive. Did I cover them all? Oh, is there funding available for chillers for concentrated sap storage? I think that would, yeah, probably be eligible for the business enhancement grant. If it's a new chiller, yeah, that's probably not an energy efficiency thing, but if you're like replacing an inefficient chiller, that might qualify for the REAP grant. But yeah, working man's business enhancement is probably the one. But
Right.
maybe something to read about that.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and thanks everyone for the questions. Let's move on now to Efficiency Vermont.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dany. I'm a program manager with Efficiency Vermont. One of the programs I manage is our agriculture program, which does include our maple offers. I'm going to share my screen and hope it is correct.
Looks good.
Perfect. All right. So my screen went very dark. Apologies. My face is so dark on this now. So for folks who might be a little bit unfamiliar with Efficiency Vermont, or you've never heard of us before, we are a statewide energy efficiency utility. So that statewide has a little asterisk next to it. There are a couple of exceptions to where we're able to operate, one being Burlington. If your electricity is served by Burlington Electric Department, then Burlington Electric Department will also act as your energy efficiency program provider. If you use natural gas from Vermont Gas Systems, they will act on the thermal end, so specifically for your thermal end uses as your efficiency service provider, but we will still do your electric side of it. So we work in partnership with Vermont Gas Services, and Burlington Electric Department kind of exists as its own energy efficiency utility. But for every other utility in the state of Vermont, we're your people to go to. We are really focused on how we help Vermonters usher in a more efficient energy future. There's lots of different ways that can look, but kind of our key values attached to that is one, taking energy off the grid. We love to do it. It's our favorite thing. Two, our next favorite thing is to give you folks money to make the good decisions to take things off of the grid. So a really core value to what we do is trying to ensure that as technologies are advancing, it stays affordable for Vermonters, and that we can reward people who are making really good grid citizenship decisions. There's a couple, this last bullet point, just some accolades we have as an organization. We've been a longtime partner of companies like Energy Star, certified by the Environmental Protection Agency. And that's a little bit about us. So to walk through some of these core functions we serve, we do a lot of engagement with manufacturers, engagement with supply chain. We do a lot of education, kind of like is happening right now, but also a lot of one-on-one guidance through our customer support services. This middle one, our rebates, incentives, and financing, is really what we're going to go in on today, kind of that funding aspect that has brought folks here. The second point I'll be touching on for a little bit shorter of a time is the engineering and project support that we offer. I think that's a really huge piece of what we have to provide producers also. And the last one being partnerships. Efficiency Vermont has been operating in the state of Vermont for a very long time. We've been fortunate enough over these past 20 plus years to build a lot of strategic partnerships, including with folks at USDA, including with other folks across the state. So we can work one-on-one with you to try to connect you to other resources also. So my apologies if I talk a little bit fast. So to quickly hit on our engineering and project support, like I said, this is a huge that we have to offer. So we have dedicated energy and engineering consultants. They're able to actually come on site to your operation free of charge to walk through your energy uses and your energy needs, to identify for you what energy kind of wastes or high energy consumption is happening within your operation. And then to kind of provide an analysis of these our recommendations for your efficiency options. We stay pretty objective in this, I think, is a really kind of core benefit to working with us. We're not a vendor, we're not a supplier, we're not trying to sell you on anything. We make recommendations and then see how we can support you. So an important thing that happens there that is always kind of a factor of working with us. If we identify an energy efficiency opportunity that in the long run is not going to be a good economic choice for you and your business, we won't strongly recommend that you make that move. So we really try to come in as that third party to see what best fits your operation. And with that, I kind of touched on the technology already, but we have a lot of amazing, really technology expert specific engineers. We actually have one engineer who's almost 100% devoted to Maple and has been doing it for 10 to 12 years. He's very, very knowledgeable about walking through Maple operation and being able to work with you to identify the unique needs. So rebates and incentives. This is, like I said, kind of the bread and butter of what we're here for today. I'm going to touch a little bit on the forms you can look for to find our different offers. I'm going to go through these 3 offers that are listed because they're definitely our most straightforward. You fill out a form, you get a number back kind of offers. But we do have a whole custom pipeline, which is where, very interestingly, I'd love to talk about chillers someday. Okay. Great. So to fill out a form, there are 2 options we have. We do have an online rebate form and we have PDF versions of the forms. For agriculture, one of the great things about it, including Maple, is that there is no pre-qualified list. So if you were to go to Efficiency Vermont and be looking to get a heat pump or a dishwasher, you'd have to put in a model number and you'd have to look through a list to make sure the product you're buying is pre-qualified. So we don't do pre-qualification for agriculture equipment. There's just no way to make a list that's keeping up to date. So we list some core requirements under each of our rebates. And so long as your equipment reaches that requirement, there's no other pre-qualification it needs to go through. The only exception to that is that we don't incentivize a system that is built yourself or a DIY system. It must be new purchased from a vendor. This phone number on here is going to be on every single slide for the rest of the presentation. That is the number to call for our project intake coordinator. It is 2 lovely folks here at Efficiency Vermont who really, really know their way around to point you in the right direction. They can stay on the phone with you through every step of filling out these forms and give specific guidance, really prepare you for the process before your form is submitted to one of our engineers to be analyzed. So I have links in the PowerPoint. I don't know if I'll be able to send maybe these slides out to be sent to participants, but if not, I could put links together and send those out to be sent also. But I said we have the 2 PDF forms, and then we do have our online form. Great, let's getting into it. First time reverse osmosis systems. I'd say this is probably the one we get the most requests for, and probably one of our most straightforward to support for you is a first time purchase of a reverse osmosis system. So based on how many gallons per hour the system is rated for, kind of tiers how much you can get in cash back from one of our incentives, all the way from 1,000 to this kind of set 3,250. If you are looking at a machine that's going over that 1,200 GPH kind of threshold, give us a call. Because that's when things are going to kind of flow into custom world with just the way that the numbers will work out. What's really awesome in the agriculture space too, which if you're familiar with Efficiency Vermont, you may have heard before questions on having to use a certified contractor from our Energy Excellence Network. That is not the case here. So you are more than welcome with Maple equipment to self-install, and you will still be qualified for our incentives and our rebates. Great. I'm just going to kind of move right along and take questions at the end. That works. So next is a Hybrix RO system. So as far as upgrading reverse osmosis systems, we are able to support looking at this upgrade to the Hybrix systems. Unfortunately, there's not a way for us to support direct replacement if you're staying at that same level of efficiency right now from your first time reverse osmosis system. But if you are looking to make the upgrade into the Hybrix system, give us a call. This questionnaire I have put up here is what will be sent back to you. And then based on what sort of efficiency upgrades are being made, those levels of everything going through the operational efficiency, we'll be able to go through this questionnaire with you and then get you back a number. This one, because it is custom, there's no set tiers for it. So it's just a call us and we work through this form with you. Next is a variable frequency drive. So this one looks at a $300 cashback per variable frequency drive. The two requirements here are that it has to be a 7.5 horsepower or greater motor that it's working on, and then you have to be running that vacuum pump that the VFD is associated with for 24 hours during the height of your sugar operation, which I know isn't usually too hard to meet, that you're running a vacuum pump for 24 hours with the past couple seasons we've had. This one is what is available through that general agriculture rebate form. The rest of that form you'll find it's a lot of dairy, it's a lot of greenhouse, but the maple specific will be for this variable frequency drive. And again, you can just call us and we'll walk you through every step of this process. The easiest way to submit these PDF forms is either going to be to print it out, fill it out, and you can send a picture off your cell phone in an email back to us. You can scan it into an email and send it back to us. You do have the option to print it out, fill it out, and mail it to us. That will result in an extended timeline a bit for getting the project completed. Or if you have anything on your computer, or you can just download something and edit it right in the computer, you can feel free to email those forms back to us that way as well. Something to note, if you're looking at this spreadsheet here for the variable frequency drive, it will say under this little column B what the rebate is C website. That's this number. It's that it's $300 per drive right now. And so where things get really fun, in my opinion, is looking at the custom projects. So this is the fact that we do have dedicated engineering staff. We do have a dedicated account management staff just for maple producers. And we can work with you on a lot of different projects. Any project that is going to reduce the number of kilowatts you're using or the MMBTUs that you're using on your operations, so reducing your fossil fuel consumption, reducing your energy consumption. There's no guarantees, but we would love to talk to you about if we can support it. So this has lots of different things that can be included in it. Like I said, this always pretty much comes along with a site visit. So one of our engineers, probably along with an account manager, to help you coming on site to actually look through your operation and walk through with you. We also just love brainstorming. Some of the coolest stuff that's come across our desks are the things that were brought to us by producers that they've been figuring out operationally, that they've been seeing with their time on the ground. So we love to just talk about it too. You're going to walk into the world of energy nerds, and we're all really excited to talk with you about your projects. And kind of this last financial option is we do have a financing partnership. Right now we work with East Rise Credit Union. This is a partnership where basically it is to look at a below market interest rate. It does have up to 100% of your project available through this financing avenue. And where we kind of play our role here is we'll help streamline your application process. So here at Efficiency Vermont, if you contact us, and you're looking for a way to apply for these financing options and you're tight on time or you need some extra assistance, we've actually taken the application that East Rise Credit Union would normally hand out for these business loans, and we've streamlined it and made it a lot for your questions so we can actually act as the middleman to have that passed along for you folks and just try to act as best a time saver for your projects as we can. So that brings me to questions. I'm going to flip back so my face is lit a little bit by a white screen. But so yeah, I'd love to take any questions now in the last few minutes.
Just in the chat, it looks like Donald said 7.5 HP VFD would likely be for a 10,000 tap operation.
Interesting. I was gonna say we've definitely supported these on a lot of operations smaller than 10,000 taps.
Yeah, 7.5. I have a 3-horse bush pump, and that's rated for 5,000 taps. So a 7.5-horse pump would likely be a minimum of 10,000 tap operation. That's I was kind of surprised by that as a minimum requirement.
I can only kind of speak from experience on that. But maybe it's something our engineers have been able to fudge with a little bit if that documentation number doesn't quite work out. That is what we have posted for eligibility right now. I would say, yes, there's a process there at work that maybe I'm not totally privy to on the back end with the analysis, because we have most certainly supported projects for VFDs with operations well below 10,000 taps.
Okay, yeah, because the pumps are more efficient than they used to be. I have actually have a remote pump station with another 3-horse, and it's just rated for 2,500 taps, and the larger Bush 3-horse is rated for 5,000. Just my experience there.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, remote tests, that's very cool. It's a fun piece of technology.
Okay.
Great. And the last note I guess I'll put out there from my end is, I know I saw some people talk about vacuum pump efficiency upgrades or something like purchasing a chiller. If you were looking to do a high efficiency chiller, one of the great parts of working through our custom program is we have refrigeration programs, we have LED lighting programs, we have all of these other things. And even though they haven't been presented as agriculture specific, these are all programs that are still available to producers, even if they aren't maple specific. So anything commercial, industrial, as long as you're a qualifying business, we also have offers for looking at custom lighting projects, for looking at custom refrigeration projects, if you're looking at a heat pump or something for heating your operation, all these different things. It is just, I kind of can't emphasize enough, worth giving us a call and telling us what you're looking to do with your project. Because there's no guarantee we can support things, but we're going to try our darndest.
Okay, yeah, I do want to upgrade to LED in the sugar house from the fluorescence, and I understand there is something. So I'll get a hold of you after the next couple of days there. Thank you.
Wonderful. I will, real quick, my face is going to go dark, but flip to this next slide. So these will be sent out. This is my contact information, that main number to call for our project intake coordinator at the top. And we do also have an account manager, Julia. She's wonderful, and she is specifically dedicated to maple as one of the kind of markets she serves. So all of our maple producers are going to have the common account manager, Julia. So this is also the contact information. Again, just happy to have talked with you folks, and hoping to talk with you all and energy nerd out about your operations.
Thank you, Dany. I'm going to share a few things in the chat. First is our feedback survey, which I would really encourage folks to fill out, because we are hoping to continue putting on workshops like this in the future. And we would love to know what you're interested in learning about, what, maple producers' priorities are. So if you could fill out that survey, it would be very helpful, and help us in the future. And then I'm going to add our Skitterbridge rental program link, as well as the form to sign up for an AMP site visit. We're doing those this fall, so please reach out if you're interested. Oh, and one more thing. There is another funding webinar that Allison Pope from Vermont Maple Sugar Makers Association shared with me, that is specifically about NRCS funding. So that is why we didn't include NRCS funding in this webinar, because there's already a great resource out there. So I just added that in the chat if folks are interested. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Have
so
a great
much.
night.